Hey guys, my name is Praz Murthy with Dr. Multimedia, CFO and co-founder, and we've been doing these marketing jam sessions. Hopefully you've seen a few already, where we just like to dive into some digital marketing topics for our doctors, for our practice managers, for people that aren't even our clients. Share some free information, and most importantly, have some discussions and some conversations to help simplify a lot of the more complex topics that are out there, make this stuff easier to understand for you, and hopefully, most importantly, provide some useful and actionable items that you guys can implement in your practices that will help improve your online presence and your online marketing. We asked people to share questions, comments, anything they found useful, anything we didn't go over, anything that we could explain more. I wanted to kind of grab some of the most common ones and just, in a shorter segment, a shorter style, go through some of those with you. So the first, and I thought the most insightful one, so thank you guys for the question, was, okay, we understand that you should have your office hours on your website, but what do you do about after hours emergencies? How do you display if you are or aren't open? Maybe there's certain days that you're on call. So I thought this was a great question. After hours care is a tremendously important topic for your website and for your online presence. So let's just kind of start at the beginning, which is your own patients. They already know you, they already trust you, they already love you, you are their medical provider. What are they supposed to do when you're closed? Whether that's in the evenings, whether that's on the weekends, whatever days that you're off and not answering your phone. Obviously, you're the first place they're going to turn if they have a dental emergency, an eye emergency, if their dog gets sick and needs urgent care. They're going to first check out their primary provider. So a good website is going to direct your patients and your clients as to what to do outside of office hours. And it's great if you can fit all of this information in alongside your office hours. If not, we definitely recommend having a emergency section or an after hours section of the website. Again, very visible, and we'll talk about why. And having those options clearly displayed. So maybe you refer to an urgent care facility or an emergency hospital nearby. You definitely want to have that information handy. And you've probably already prepped your patients and your clients about this or had it available in your practice. But you got to remember, in an emergency or an urgent care situation, kind of rational decision-making goes out the window. If we're using animals as an example, you often have the dog and a leash in one hand, you've got your cell phone in the other, and you're running around trying to get everything in the car, get moving, pull up directions on your phone, calling your spouse or your significant other, let them know what's going on. So it's a chaotic time, and you can't really just rely on past preparation to help them out. So if you close at 5, what should someone do if at 5:15 they have an emergency? Including that information is really useful. Now, not just for your current clients, but as we talked about yesterday, if you are open extended hours or special hours or unique hours, that's a huge selling point because someone else's patients or clients may be undergoing an emergency situation and they'll just be looking for who's open, and they may choose to come to you even though you're not their regular provider. We talked about that briefly a couple weeks ago in an example out in Flint, Michigan, where a tourist was in town, was eating dinner, cracked or chipped a tooth, something happened with the tooth, needed an emergency dentist, went online, thanks to Dr. Castle at Lindenbrook Dental Associates, his new hours. He's now open till 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. They immediately identified that he was one of the few practices still open, called them, came on in. If memory serves, it ended up being, crown procedure as well, and a really, nice procedure that he never would have gotten with his normal hours, and he never would have gotten if it wasn't explicit that he was open late. So having emergency information is not just about referring people out away from your practice, it's also about capturing other emergency cases. So what do you do if you're not open, till 9 p.m., but you still want to generate and earn some of that business in some of those cases? Well, a classic example would be if you have people on call, whether you're a dentist or an optometrist or you're a small practice especially. This is the most common situation where, hey, the phone rings to your cell phone when you're not in the practice. So technically you're available and you will take the call, but you don't want to be on the hook for having to answer phone calls during that time. So all that said, kind of what do you do? So if you're Dr. Watts out in the Tampa, Florida area, he lists himself as open 24 hours for emergencies, because if someone has a dental emergency, he absolutely wants them to contact him first. And if they call the practice line, even if it's late at night, odds are you will get, a person and they can guide you. And if the answer is to come on in for your emergency, fantastic. If the answer is to go somewhere else for the emergency, of course, they're going to point you in the right direction. Now, Dr. Watts is not, on 24/7 call 365 days a year. So if he's going to be out of town, if they don't have enough doctors a particular weekend, if they just don't want to be responsible for the emergency cases for whatever logistical reason, they then edit the website. They put up what to do in the case of emergency. They set up the voicemail number. And you can even go into your Google business listing and adjust temporary hours, saying, hey, we're normally open 24/7 for emergencies, but this weekend we're going to be only available these certain hours. So outlining the emergency care, the emergency protocol, extremely and critically important. And like I said, in an emergency situation, people are clicking fast, they're thumbing around on their phones, so having like a big bright emergency button is recommended. That way that if you are in that scenario, it's very easy what to do, and then you essentially follow, what you're told. And everything we've talked about your website presence, your social media, your reviews, all of that gets extremely amplified in an emergency situation. So if my dog Wally has an emergency and I need to look up emergency vet, I'm Googling emergency veterinarian open now. I'm looking at it, and if the Banfield facility has a 3.4, I'm not going there. There's no time to read reviews. I'm just on to the next listing. And that's where everything becomes amplified and magnified in those emergency settings where people are literally making decisions in split seconds. Another popular question we got was, what is the most important factor in website design? Was it the details that we started with yesterday during the longer talk, or is it something else? And so I did think for a couple minutes about the answer to that, because while we talked about it briefly in yesterday's podcast, the single most important feature, if you could only have one, is the mobile experience. So, the analytics are showing us these days, well, we've been used to for a while a 50-50 split, about half the traffic coming from desktop, half from a mobile device. More recently, especially in some of our more urban settings or places that we know that skew a little younger and more technologically savvy, we're seeing it as high as 60-40 mobile, and in some extreme cases even a little bit higher, mobile to desktop. So consider that means that 60%, or 6 out of 10, or 3 out of 5 people that are coming to your website are only seeing it on a mobile phone. So, every day around here we're designing new websites, we're working with doctors, we're working with staff on building out a new website, and they put a lot of care and attention into it. But I think one of the mistakes they make is that they're always looking at it on a computer, because that's natural, right? You get an email, you're at work, you sit down, you open it on the big screen, you look around, you provide all the feedback that you can. It's when we're consumers is when we look at things on the mobile phone, because we're moving around quickly and we really just don't care as much because we're just trying to make a fast decision. So I think a lot of time and energy gets invested in people's desktop or computer versions of their website, which is okay. We want you to love it, but consider that if the majority of people are coming to it on a phone, they're not even going to see the things that you're worried about or the things that you're working on, and they're going to see such a slimmed down version, and it's so much less likely that they go deep within the website, click on pages, read text, click on photos. So if I was judging a website and I was only given one criteria in which I could do it, I would pick their mobile experience. I would pull the website up on a phone, and then I would ask myself, how easy is it to call you, get directions, find your hours, contact you online? If those things are easy on a mobile device, then I think you're generally winning regardless of the rest of the website. This next question, it wasn't the most popular question. It was pretty rare, but it's something that I've seen kind of as a trend, and I thought it was worth bringing up for anyone that's kind of curious. So as websites have gotten kind of more sophisticated and more sleek, and people have been moving to kind of a modern design, I think this concept of a one-page website has really sprung up. You kind of see it a lot of different places online, especially if they're trying to get you to buy something. So for those of you that aren't familiar, it looks like a regular website when you first land on it, but then any option you pick out of the menu really just takes you to a different part of the homepage. So you click on About Us and it slides you all the way down to the bottom section of the homepage where it's there. A lot of self-made websites look like this now. If you use Squarespace or Wix or GoDaddy Website Builder, it's obviously so much easier to tackle a website if you just have to layer sections one on top of the other, and then your menu takes you there. So there is a lot of appeal. Visually, it's nice. Everything's on the homepage. We talked about briefly yesterday how people really only go to the homepage, so you're ensuring that the key information is there. So there are some positives. Now, overall, we don't really recommend this approach for your local business. And the reason why largely falls to search engines and search engine optimization, which if you saw with one of our last talks, is just fancy for how you show up on Google, essentially, and other search engines. So the issue, we think, with these smaller websites, well, they're easier to manage and they're easier to contain and they're easier to set up. They don't leave you a whole lot of room for growth. And while your website is certainly meant to capture people looking for a dentist or an optometrist, an orthodontist, or a chiropractor near you, there are a lot of other ways to generate traffic, to your website. An example from my own life that I'm sort of embarrassed to share is that I recently started running on a treadmill, and I'd never done this before, not my particularly, my choice of exercise, but it was there. I decided to use it. So here I am, inexperienced, getting on a treadmill, and I'm looking through the options, and I see the incline option, and I figure, all right, well, running uphill sounds harder. That's probably getting me more bang for my buck in terms of my workout. So I just went ahead and hit the maximum incline, 15, right? Even though the number wasn't red, I just ignored that, hit the incline. I started walking and running on that. I did that for 3 or 4 days. I'm only sharing that with you because after that, I had some lower back pain, and I was trying to figure out why. And so I asked around, but no one really had an answer. And so I literally just went to Google and I typed in, just started running on a treadmill, my lower back hurts. And kind of no coincidence, the first result that I got was a chiropractor's website, just a regular old chiropractor, not anyone particularly around me, not anyone that I was looking to go to. I wasn't in the market for a chiropractor. But on their website, they had content about lower back pain and some common causes. And on there, it literally said, if don't run at an incline on a treadmill, that can be a source of lower back pain. And as soon as I read that, I was like, oh yeah, I put it together in reverse. I didn't realize that was the cause at the time. So the point of the story is that I wound up on a chiropractor's website from a very general Google question simply because they had taken the time to answer that question on their website. Now, some chiropractors might say, well, Praz, you weren't going to go in there, so why do they care? Well, a couple things. One, it's traffic. And again, if you've been paying attention to our other talks, you know that traffic is good for the website. Traffic equates to SEO. But two, it also positions you as an authority and an expert. If I did have other chiropractic questions or I was considering a chiropractor, I've certainly acknowledged just by reading and accepting what they're telling me is true, that they are an expert in their field and they've put their name of the practice in my head, and I might look to see when they're open or what appointments they have. But also the ability to capture these kinds of searches. So yes, everyone types in, chiropractor La Jolla to see how they rank. But what they don't often pay attention to are what are all the casual searches that could bring someone to your website if you provided them useful information. So someone took the time to answer my question, and that in turn led to me ending up on the website. So to relate this back to the single page, if they were running a single page website and everything just had to go somewhere on the homepage, they wouldn't have the space or probably even the idea to generate that kind of content. So in a world where we want to see constant content creation, which is another topic for another day, what we want to do is we want to make sure you have the space for your website to grow, whether that's blog articles, new pages, adding things to the menu. And it doesn't even really matter if people come to the website and navigate their way there. What matters is that it's out there, it's online, it's published, and forever it can continue to attract traffic to your website, which is good for a lot of different reasons. So one other example there, we had a veterinarian out on the East Coast write a blog article on cats and wires, electrical wires, and the safety issues involved there. For whatever reason, that blog article got picked up somewhere, probably not even when she wrote it, got published around. And to this day, years later, it accounts for a significant source of traffic of people winding up on her website, reading this article that she published years ago. So the content you put out can serve you for months and years to come. And we think that often gets ignored or lost when you try to simplify the website too much. Have a great homepage, have a pretty homepage, have all the information you want on there. Make sure you have other components to your website, even if they're not immediately visible, that they're there and attracting traffic. So that, in our opinion, you want to stay away from those single-page websites if your goal is to kind of build this online presence that's going to attract the maximum number of visitors. So another question that we got recently was a follow-up on one of our previous talks about really customizing the website, not just the design and the layout, but the look, the feel, the photography, the video. And so we got a question of just how important this is. I think the context of the question was, there was a doctor that was all for it, but was having a really difficult time getting the staff to agree to it, scheduling, having everyone show up, getting a photographer. So they wanted to know really how important is it. So I think there's a couple of components to that answer. In my opinion, it's incredibly important. As we talked about yesterday in the podcast, you really want to humanize your practice in whatever way you can to make you and your staff relatable to potential patients, to build trust, to establish a level of comfort, show them that you're just regular people in the community and that you're here to help. I think all of that is important, and one of the best ways to do that is to see who you're dealing with. I mean, if you're on the other end of this video, just consider reading everything I'm saying in an article versus seeing me in our office, with our background here in La Jolla and delivering the information. It kind of makes it easier to digest. It at least puts a face to the name. Maybe it builds some credibility in your eyes, for me, if we were to talk in the future. So there is that aspect of it, but also I think it just makes everything look better, because these days, especially online, we're fairly desensitized to stock photography, stock images, stock video. They look nice because the production value is so high, but we almost immediately pluck it out. If you scroll through social media, you have companies on there just posting stock, and then you have companies and practices posting unique pictures. And when I scroll through a news feed on Facebook or posts on Instagram, I can just tell, looking at the engagement, if that picture was a real picture that they took or a picture that they downloaded off the internet because it looked nice. Because we kind of have this filter, especially on social media, when we're flipping through, and when we see people we know, when we see situations we recognize, when we see staff, when we see the building, we see cute cases, that catches our eye, and that's something more meaningful to interact with than just giving a thumbs up to a beautiful stock photo. So to answer your question, Doctor, I think it's extremely important and worth a lot of effort to get those kind of multimedia materials. You don't have to go as far as a full video shoot, if it's really inconvenient, but replacing elements of your website with more custom or unique or individual components, photos or video ideally, even if it's not of the people, a video tour of your practice, that'll go a long way. And I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, yes, you don't want low resolution, blurry photos, of course, at a large size, but it also doesn't have to be that super high-end, professional photographer quality, especially with the new iPhones and digital cameras that are out there. You can find a happy medium, but snap a couple pictures. Start with just a few. If you don't get the whole staff, if not everyone did their hair that morning, right, you don't have to get everyone together. You can do it over time, but slowly aim to replace anything generic on your website with something that represents your practice more specifically, and I think you'll see a better result. Not to mention that it also represents you and your practice, and it just makes it feel right. When you go to your website, you want to see the things that make your practice unique and individual, and our clients certainly do a great job of that. One, because we force them and kind of beg and plead to get those photos. But two, if you are going to the lengths of a custom website, kind of why stop short when it comes to the photography and the video? So even if you're just contacting a friend, an amateur photographer, the family member of someone that works for you, start the process, and you can always replace pictures. That's one of the beautiful things about your website. It's always evolving. So start with a picture. Then if you think of a better way of getting a better picture, swap that in. You can always update these elements of your website. So definitely put some time and energy into making the website look and feel like your own. That will pay dividends in the impressions that you're providing your potential patients. We got a question about online chat services. There's a lot of these out there. I think a lot of them are cold calling doctors right now and kind of showing off their product at conferences. So there's been a couple minutes on it. Don't want to really sway you one direction or the other. But if you're not familiar, now when you go to a lot of websites, a little bubble will pop up and it claims to be a person sitting right there ready to chat with you online. And this is hugely appealing because it's real time. You can get people that are busy or don't want to call. We spent a lot of time talking yesterday about how the website is meant to facilitate people contacting you when you're not open. So online chat sounds like a tremendous way to do that. And it engages people and they can get quick questions answered, all along the way. And there are a lot of different services. They vary from robots to full-on people sitting there, to the ability to answer in the practice, to it all being outsourced. So I certainly don't have time to cover all the options, but more talk about it as a concept. So, and if you've been to drmultimedia.com, you've seen that we employ one of these chat services. And so I feel pretty well versed because I'm on the other side of it monitoring it. So it does a couple things. So yes, it is absolutely great to have a call to action, something pop up, grab some people's attention, and offer them the ability to interact with your practice just on the spot with chat. I think most people are fairly comfortable with that now. A few years ago, it may have been, a little uneasy, especially for the older clientele. But I think now even they're happy to kind of type in a question and see what answer comes back. But in my opinion, whether or not you should do this entirely depends on the experience from the point that they decide to engage with your chat. A lot of reasons here. So first, if it is one of those more robotic or automated services, basically the equivalent of your answering service, just an online chat, really the only thing that person can do is collect the name, the phone number, the email, and tell them that you'll call them back. I don't find that to be that useful. While it's great that you captured some information, you engage a person in a chat, and then when that person starts asking questions, hey, I need to come in early. Can I come in at 8:30 tomorrow instead of 9? Hey, can I rearrange my appointment from Thursday to Friday? Do you guys treat this? Do you guys treat that? And if the other person just keeps coming back with the same response, like, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. We will contact you. What is your name? That experience isn't so great and I think can turn some people off. As much as people are comfortable with the idea of chat, I don't think people want to be chatting with a robot. So I think it really needs to be authentic and at least feel like a real person or be leading up to a real person. Not to mention that if they do that, and if they submit their information and then your infrastructure in your practice doesn't lead to them getting a call back right away to start the next day, now you've delayed them contacting you, which might have happened much sooner if it weren't for the chat. So if you're going to use it as a way to intercept people, you have to be extremely vigilant about how you're getting back to them. So let's say you're not using a robot, not automated chat, and it's a person or a semi-live person. I think that's better. I think it can engage some people and get them interested right off the bat. But I still don't think that it's going to be a smooth experience if they run into a roadblock, meaning, let's say it's a real person, but they're off-site. And so they can't tell you, I like to test out these chat features when I see them. So the last one I was on yesterday, I hopped on the chat. I said, hey, is this a real person? And they said yes. And then I said, I left my sweater behind at my appointment yesterday. Can you tell me if you guys have it? And then it came out, oh, sorry, we're not at the practice. We're chatting on behalf of them. And so I think what's cool about online chat is the possibility that you're interacting with someone in the practice. In my opinion, as soon as it's revealed that you're not, it kind of loses its luster and in fact can prohibit people from contacting you. Now let's take it to the extreme, which is what we do here. Let's say if someone engages with your live chat that they will get to a real person. That, I think, is the optimal situation and you just have to plan accordingly. So we use the feature Intercom. Hey guys. Thanks for the great product. We we use that, and what our chat does is it starts off as a kind of automated question and answer system. It asks you a couple questions to figure out who you are. If you make it far enough down that, and we've got your information, it tells you, hey, someone's going to call you. And it, like, all of our phones buzz, and whoever sees the message will give them a call, usually within a couple of moments, kind of worst case, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So we really have it spread out. Now, if we delegated that to just Molly, the receptionist, or just a salesperson, and they were busy and they were on a call and they miss it and they don't get back to them till later that evening or the next day, we've literally taken someone who, if it weren't for our chat box, might have filled out our contact form, name, address, phone number, email, and told us when to call them and set us up perfectly for what we want to accomplish here in our business. We could have taken someone willing to do that and converted them into someone that chatted with us and now is sitting there waiting for a call back. And in my opinion, that's a worst case scenario. You've taken someone who was going to deliver all their information, and now you've created someone who's sitting there waiting. And if you don't get back to them, they're going to be frustrated with the experience through no fault of your own. Maybe this is how you meant to use chat, but if I'm expecting some real-time engagement and I don't get it, now I'm actually turned off by the experience, where if the chat box didn't exist, I wouldn't feel one way or the other about it. And if I did want to learn more about you, I might fill in the information, or I might call, or I might text, if that's an option. Instead, I picked the method that you gave me, and I'm not hearing back right away. So I think that can be really damaging. So in short, I don't think most doctors' offices are utilizing it correctly, and I think in some cases they're doing some harm. Emergency situation like we started this with, I pull it out, online chat, great, I'm having a dental emergency, can I come in? And you get the automated response, what's your name? What's your phone number? Like, oh, we'll call you tomorrow. That really wastes someone's time in an emergency situation, and they're not going to feel too great about that, when if you remove the chat option, they might have just hit the call button and see what the voicemail had to say. So it can be extremely useful if you use it right. If you're not using it right, if you haven't delegated to your staff to have a system and a web of who's going to answer what and how often it's being checked and where the email notifications go and whose mobile phone gets a push notification, I would suggest that maybe you ease your way into it. Maybe you only use it when you're closed, so you can set timers on these things and you can set it up. Say, hey, if we're after 5 p.m., before 7 a.m., if someone comes to the website, you can engage them with this chat just like our answering service would engage them. I think that's fine, but please, if you do that, make sure you have a protocol at 7:01 that someone is checking and reading and going through all of the messages to get back to people right away, or I feel like you're losing leads. In the internet world of leads coming in through a website, we often say, it's similar to the old, missing child scenario, which if you don't find them in the first 24 hours, your odds drop, your percentages that you're going to do it drop dramatically. So if someone contacts you and they're engaged and willing to speak with you, and you don't get back to them within 24 hours, a lot less actually, the odds that you're going to keep that momentum or that you're going to even get a hold of that person drop dramatically, and we don't want to see that happen. So in a word, chat can be great. In more words, it can be great if you're using it correctly, and certainly you don't want to use it incorrectly or put it up and forget about it, because you will be damaging the ability for people to contact you through your website. Cool. Joe, I think we're at a half hour. Again, defeating the purpose, but hopefully that was good content out there. So, guys out there, thanks for watching. If you're on Facebook Live, appreciate you guys tuning in. We're trying to stay consistent in timing so you can catch these things, but of course you can watch it after Facebook, Instagram. We'll split those questions up. Keep the questions coming in. They're extremely useful. We love seeing what you guys want to learn more about. And it also helps us get better for when we do these in the future, to make sure to include all of these the first time. If you've just tuned in, my name's Praz Murthy, CFO and co-founder at Dr. Multimedia. If this is the first time you're seeing one of these videos, please follow us on Instagram, like our Facebook page, visit drmultimedia.com. You can see all the content that we've been putting out and will continue to put out. We've shot a whole bunch of stuff that is being released each day. So if you want to get notifications when those come out, please check it out. Take a look, binge watch it if you want. Let us know what you want to see more of. If you want to send us your practice, even if you're not a client, send us your information. Happy to go over it, give you free suggestions and tips and tricks of the trade. So other than that, I thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, thanks for watching.